Right, so starting off with the box switched off, switch it on at the main socket, and you'll see it light up. Just goes through a little startup cycle. And then it's idling. It tells us the ambient temperature inside, so it's 14 degrees inside the kiln, just because it's been off. That's the general air temperature we've got today. So to start off, press this button on the left and it'll tell us what program you've gone to. You could cycle through different programs, but everything I do is on this program 7. 1 to 6 I just kept getting it wrong, so I settled on program 7, and if I want to make any changes to my temperatures, I do it all on this program 7. I don't save it, I will just change it if I need to. So let's have a look. We're on program 7, so we're going to accept that, and the first thing we're going to look at is our ramp rate. So this is how much the temperature will go up every hour. So at the moment it's showing it goes up 100 degrees every hour, which is a nice progressive temperature for your initial bisque firing and your glaze firings. It just means there's less risk of cracking if you go up nice and slow. So 100 is fine. If you want to go to a higher temperature, just press this button in the middle. You've got an up arrow, and you might want to go to 120. So let's go to 120. So that means it's going up 2 degrees every hour instead of about 1.5 degrees every hour at 100. But you know, if you're firing to 1200, it just means it's going to be going for about 10 hours. If you're not in that much of a rush, you'd leave it at 100. It's going to go on probably overnight for you anyway, and there's your 100 an hour. So if you're happy with 100 is your ramp rate, you would accept that by pressing the button on the left, and then you're looking at your next temperature, which is your maximum firing temperature. So this is showing 900, so that's a nice temperature for your initial bisque firing. You don't want to do your bisque firing too high a temperature, because you want your bisque fired clay to be able to take the glaze. The higher the temperature, the harder the clay goes and the less it takes the glaze. So maybe between 800 and 900 for your bisque firing. So if you thought 900 was too much, you could bring that down to 800 by pressing this button on the right, the down arrow. So let's say you were happy with, I don't know, 820. 820 is the one you want to go for your bisque firing, and again accept that by pressing the button on the left. So this is your hold time. At the end of your firing, it will hold this temperature, the maximum temperature, for 30 minutes. So this is probably more important on your glaze firing, because if your glaze, say, has an operational temperature, say 1150 degrees, you don't want to just get to 1150 and stop. You want it to stay at 1150 to make all the chemical reactions and the heat happen. So at 1150 it would hold that for 30 minutes to get the maximum effect out of your glaze. If you didn't want to do it for 30 minutes, you'd press the down arrow. If you want to do longer than 30 minutes, you'd press the up arrow, but you'd probably just leave it at 30 minutes. It's really no reason to change that. The next one is A2. Now this is if you're having a second temperature in your firing cycle. You know, I don't know why you would use this, and I have never used it. I've never used the A2 setting. I just do my ramp rate, my maximum temperature, my whole time, and set it going. So you would probably just press the button on the left to go past the A2. You wouldn't use it, and then it starts. So press the button on the left to start, and your firing's begun. So it tells you what the temperature is in there now. It's 15 degrees. We've set it to, I think we left it at 100, didn't we? So it's going to go up about 1.5 degrees every minute. You'll hear it click as the thermostat in the box does its job. Make sure that you've got windows open. If you're doing it in the garage, you know, you can just, if you've got a window, or leave plenty of ventilation, because the heat will build up in the room. Obviously not to the temperature of the kiln, because this brickwork really does hold the temperature in, but the room will get very hot. So that's that. You would just leave that. If you decide you didn't want to do it anymore, you could just press the button on the left and it would stop the firing. So, you know, if you just want to do a few test cycles like I've just in this video, that's what you would do. Now you've got some little bungs which go in these holes. This hole here, and this hole here, and those bungs are, I'm doing really well with this video. I've left them inside the kiln. Here we are. So what you do with these, excuse me, is after about 500 degrees of firing, even though your pot is dry, there's a lot of moisture still that you just don't know about. So you're looking to drive all that moisture out, especially if you've applied glaze. Even though you might have let it dry for a couple of days, there will still be water in there somewhere. And so you're looking for your first 500 degrees to drive that water out of the clay. So do this for a bisque firing, do it for your glaze firing, just be in the habit. Let it go to 500 degrees with the bung holes open, then pop that in. And the other one in the other hole, and then leave that till the end. And that's all to do with getting this reduction thing where all the oxygen is burnt up in the kiln, and that can affect what you know, what your glazing effects are. I mean, you'll be able to read about this in books and so on or on the internet, but that's just how I use this. So just as a habit, after 500 degrees, stick the bungs in and then basically forget about it till finishing time. Once the firing is ended, I generally would do my firings at night. I would let them, probably start them about 6 at night or even in the afternoon, and just leave it going into the night. It'll switch off, and then maybe leave it a good 12 hours to cool down. Now what you'll be able to see when you finish that firing, the machine will have gone off. It'll say something like CPL for complete, and it'll still tell you the temperature that's inside. So you'll come out to this in the morning thinking, oh, it's all cooled down now, and it'll still be something like 80 degrees in there, and you absolutely don't want to be opening it when it's 80 degrees. So let it cool. Maybe when it gets down to 50, you could just sort of lift the lid a little bit, prop it up with a bit of, you know, one of these bungs, just stick on the lid, just let a little bit of air get in. But what you don't want is a rush of cold air going in onto a hot pot, because the least you might find your glaze cracks, you get little fine cracks in the glaze, or your pot might break. I can remember at college days bringing a pot out to the car on a winter's night, and all the way home you're going ping, 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 ping. Got all these little hairline cracks all over my glaze. So let it cool down as slowly as you possibly can. I mean, the thing about pottery is you can't be in a rush. It just doesn't work. So there you are. So hopefully that's been helpful. And obviously once everything's finished, you can switch it off at the wall. You can put that down there. You can lift this up, and you get all your wonderful, beautifully glazed pots out of there. And even when they've cooled down to about 30, you'd probably still want to get them out with a tea towel or an oven glove or something, because they'll still be quite warm, and there will come a point where you'll be impatient to get them out, and get them out while they're still a bit too hot to touch. I know I always did. There you go. Hopefully that's been helpful.